Welcome to Surviving Ish. You guys, I'm a little bit of cabin fever. I'm not sure exactly the time that this will be released, but I've been snowed in, which happens a couple times or a couple of days out of the year here in Tennessee where I live. But the past like 3 weeks, there's been, calls for storms. I've stayed at hotels so I could get to work, and then nothing happened. I've been a bit of just secluded and away from people. And this is one of the first podcast recordings that I'm doing since then. And I'm so excited to connect with Lynn Harris. Thank you for joining me today. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm like, I'm the first human face you've seen in 3 weeks, or something like that. So happy to play that role.
Yeah, it's been so I see your background. Are you having a blizzard where you're at, or is that normal, or is that
We did have a spectacular, the perfect kind of blizzard. I'm in New York, and we had like the perfect kind of blizzard where, let me not downplay the fact that people did die of cold. I don't want to downplay that. But what I mean is, and that is, but that also happens, not to downplay it, that also happens. You don't need a blizzard for that because we
right?
still have to fix that problem, obviously.
Right.
Um, but we had, other than that, and just in terms of people being able to take public transportation to their jobs and people being able to like maintain the necessities of their livelihood and things like that, it was the kind of snowstorm where it was just enough to be a real snowstorm that was a delight, but not so much that people like couldn't get to their jobs and earn their livings and that kind of thing. So it was
Yeah.
really beautiful. The funny part though is is that because it's been really cold, the snow hasn't melted. And so when they plow it into mountains on the corners of the streets because there's nowhere else to put it and it's not melting. So it's a little bit Winter Olympics core here in New York City because there's like mountains big enough to snowboard down on the corners of the streets in Midtown Manhattan. So it's
Oh
pretty funny.
wow. That is
But
hilarious.
I love it. This is my element. I'm super happy.
Yeah, I live in Knoxville, Tennessee, and people are like, "Oh, you get like all 4 seasons," and ish, like we ish,
Yeah.
we get like 2 days of fall, and that we can say, and there are a lot of times of the year that we get like all 4 seasons in one day, and
Right.
like today, so Knoxville is kind of in a valley. So we can't really watch the news and know what's going to happen because it'll change 10 minutes later. And, it's like everybody around us had like 15 inches. We had four, but of course, we also live in a place where our state doesn't prepare for it because there's no financial reason to do so.
Yep. Right.
And so you could pee in front of someone's driveway and they're closing schools down. Like
Yep.
that's how it happens here. So
Yep. Yep.
um well, so nice to meet you. So do me a favor, give us a bit of an introduction before we get on to our ish.
Sure. Sure. Again, my name is Lynn Harris. Thank you for having me. I live work at the intersection of comedy and social change, making a difference, all those things. And I have done that for a long time. I was a journalist for a long time. I did stand up for a long time. I worked for a very cool human rights organization that did comedy driven campaigns, a lot of which I led, to get people to understand human rights issues in a way, including in the US, in a way that was real and relevant and actionable. So it's that, and I've written books, and I've it's what I do. And currently, I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Gold Comedy, which is primarily online. So anyone curious, you can find us. You can do stuff with us. We're a comedy school and professional network and content studio where women and non-binary folks and others, so really anybody who's trying to escape the bro vibe of kind of the rest of the comedy world, where you can come and build your comedy career or build your creative side hustle, become part of a powerful and collaborative community, and make funny stuff that actually gets seen on all kinds of stages and screens. And I think what drew me, what draws me to the topics that you discuss, and I know we're going to get into this, is okay, well, what can comedy do
Yeah.
when it intersects with trauma, with things that are not funny, whether they're, individual trauma or things that are traumatic to us as a group of people or to a nation? Where does comedy come in a way? What is the power of comedy to really transform not the entire experience? Of course, it's not a substitute for the other elements of transformation and healing,
Sure.
but it does have a lot of, but it is one of them.
Yeah.
And what are the ways that doesn't work? What are the ways that does work? How have I seen comedians leverage it? How have I seen non-comedians leverage even if they're not professionals, leverage, sort of tap into the power of humor, if not professional comedy, into, as part of their journey.
Yeah.
So that's sort of that's what brought us to this same place where we both have fake fireplaces in our videos.
Exactly. Exactly. So, oh my gosh, like I already have a lot of questions, but before I get into those, because I feel like that's going to be the topic that we really tune in on. What is that lighthearted surviving ish that you're having right now?
Okay. I mean, I'm not really surviving it because it's making me nuts. And this is going to sound a little snooty, and I don't mean it to, but in fact, it's the opposite. I think it's the opposite. Do you know how many times you call and you call and get a recording, which fine, you call customer service, whatever it is, you get a recording, and then it says, and I'll translate in English, it says, for Spanish, press 2. Okay? And when that voice says, para español, oprima numero dos, I'm like, are you serious? Like, was there no person who spoke native Spanish within a 5-mile radius of wherever you recorded that? I think not. It drives me insane.
Yeah,
Come on. Or get someone with at least halfway decent high school Spanish. O prima numero dos? This is the United States. Did we not just see Bad Bunny last night? I mean,
that.
that we have plenty of people who can help you with this.
Yeah,
It's so bananas to me. I'm like, what corner are you cutting here?
right.
This will take you 5 minutes. There's someone in the building right now. You could just be like, hey, can you just come to the soundproof booth for a second and say one
Yes.
sentence? I'll buy you lunch. Like,
Right.
this is not hard. So it drives me nuts. Drives me nuts. There
I
you
love
go.
I love that ish because I have two predominant people in my life that are working on learning English. We know enough to where people have even people will hear me and my best friend Nao speak. And he knows very little English. I know very little Spanish. And so it's very comical to hear us communicate because we're kind of like sign languaging and body motioning and we talk with like I'll talk with a bit of an accent and we talk really loud because we think that helps. And
Yes,
yeah,
it does.
right. If I scream what I'm saying, we have the translator. And but you know what? I love it. I love it. We both learn. And when I hear him, he does 3 English classes a week that are like 2 hours long. And when I hear him speaking English, and then I hear like him speaking Spanish to interpret what he just said, in English, I'm like, I'm kind of getting the free class. So I put my ear up to the door, I'm learning
Yeah,
for
yeah.
free from him. But yeah, like, and he and I have even had this conversation. He was like, this is Spanish, but I don't know if it's the right Spanish. But you're right. It's like, why are we not making things? Okay, I want to be careful how I say this because I don't want to get too political. But it's like, are there people that are purposely doing the shitty side of making it harder, like with a different language, just to try to prove their point of this is America when America is supposed to be about culture and different. I mean, Puerto Rico, just a reminder to people, is part of America. It's like, what are we doing here?
I know. Just walk out to the street. I mean, I don't know
But
where they record these things, and it's probably some central place, but like walk out to the street and be
yeah,
be like, "Hey, can anyone buy a coffee? Can you just come here for 1 second and say,
yeah,
to read for Spanish, press two?" That's
yeah,
it. It's embarrassing.
yeah.
It's
It's
embarrassing.
like I know very, very little Spanish, but I could say el español dos. But like, I mean, that's pretty much it, right?
It's better than most I've heard.
I
Yeah.
don't know. Sometimes I just get, and Nao and I have had conversations about this. It's like, are there certain businesses that are on a certain political side where it's like, let's make this really hard just to prove some kind of point?
Or even maybe, yeah, but or even it's to me, it's also like it doesn't even have to be that like calculating and intentional. It's just sloppy. Like we don't
Sure.
really care how our
Yeah.
Spanish customers feel.
Yeah.
So we're just gonna get
Yes.
Lorraine over there,
Yeah.
who has never spoken Spanish a day in her life, to just phone this in,
Yeah.
because we don't care. We don't care how our
Yeah.
if our Spanish customers feel seen, respected, heard. So it's not. I don't know if it's necessarily deliberate. It's just like to me, it's like the tiniest little detail, but it says a lot.
Yeah. Well,
Do
and you're
better.
right. They may not sit around and calculate like, let's do this, but there's also that like when it's brought to your attention, do you care to change it? You
Yeah.
know, and so I'm curious to see the places that I call the next time, that have been like, okay, let's simplify this. Let's change this a little bit.
I mean, it probably comes from like a couple of different centralized companies that deliver their phone systems, but whatever. Then
Yeah.
those companies fix it.
Yeah. Either
It's not
way,
that hard. Fix it.
let's fix
Yeah.
it.
Very silly.
Yeah. Okay, so here's what I'm surviving ish. And I'll tell you, today, like I mentioned in my intro, the snow's gone. It's 49 degrees outside, and I went shopping earlier this morning, and people were in short sleeves and shorts because it went from like -6 to now it's 49 degrees, and we think that it's warm when obviously I'm still in a sweater. But what I'm surviving ish is my day today. For example, the sweater that I'm wearing is the same as the wall behind me. So I look like a floating head. So there's that.
I can
I
mostly tell where you start.
right like
Yeah, I can
I
mostly tell.
I didn't even notice that until I turned the camera on. I was like, we're just gonna go with it. It'll be fine. It'll be an ish. But while snowed in, I thought I like to treat myself to something nice every year. And I'm going to treat myself to some new living room furniture. Nothing wrong with my old furniture, just something new, right? I learned that although I was a student in school, I apparently learned forgot how to use a tape measure
Oh,
and how to measure things. And so I've ordered pictures, I've ordered couches, I've ordered throw blankets, pillows. Um, I'm not loving any of it. And so I had to return a few things today. I found a few things while shopping. I found a few things that I like that would go with some of the older stuff that I have. And I was like, this can be a temporary thing. So right before you and I logged on, I was Googling how to measure things correctly to hang on the wall. And I will say, I only put two holes in the wall that did not need to be there.
okay,
And
okay.
the picture covers it. So
Mhm.
we're okay for now. But
Okay.
you know, people tell me all the time when they see my home, they're like, David, I want you to come decorate my home. And I just kind of laugh in my head because I'm like, there's a lot of things that come with being gay, right? And there's a lot, people think, oh, you can decorate, you can dress. I have everyone do that for me. And
Yeah.
and this time I thought, and I blame it on the snow. I blame it on the cabin fever. This time I thought, you know what? I've got enough experience. I've seen enough done. I've got AI at my fingertip. I've got Pinterest. I've got gay friends on interior designers on FaceTime. I can do this. I cannot do this.
Yeah. There is a special magic. I know.
There's some
I know.
branches I missed falling out of that gay tree. There's some branches I missed.
Yeah.
I don't know how to dress myself. I wear what's on the mannequin. Obviously, I'm matching. This is perfect color. Like
If your goal was to match the wall, you nailed it.
then I nailed that. So that's kind of what I'm surviving ish. But you know what? maybe this is a test to see how my antidepressants are working, to see how my therapy is working, to see how this
Okay.
podcast is working, which is
Okay.
part of my therapy, on how stressed do I get, how many things do I break, at what point do I accept the fact that I can't do this alone? And so maybe this is my 2026 test.
Could be.
Does my
Could be.
doctor need to up my antidepressant dosage? To be determined.
To be determined. Or do you just need to design help? It could be just that.
Could be just that.
Could be just that.
So that's kind of where I'm at today.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Got it.
yeah. But I'm trying to enjoy the ride.
That's all we can do.
Yeah. So okay, so to lead us into this, a few of the questions that I have with with
Sure.
with what you told us about you, that'll get us into a deeper topic is after I went through my big trauma, which was 10 years ago, so it's not that long ago, um, I remember the first time I heard myself laugh, and my longtime listeners, they've heard this story, but where I had I had to learn how to walk again. I had some control damage, and I got down to 98 pounds. There was no like muscle mass. I was clumsy, and I remember like just dropping and spilling my milk and cereal, and all I wanted was a bowl of Fruity Pebbles. That's all I wanted,
Yeah.
and I couldn't get it without some hellacious war in front of me. And I fell down in the kitchen, and for the first time, I laughed instead of crying. When falling down became a norm to me, but I was
Mhm.
embarrassed, right? I had to learn how to pat myself on the back that I could walk to the mailbox. I've been walking to the mailbox since I was 3 years old. Had to pat myself on the back that I could stand up and pee in the toilet. I've been doing that since I was 12. I don't know. How old are you when you learned to pee standing up? Who knows?
Younger than 12, but you do you.
but like, and so I had to learn how to pat myself on the back for these things that should just be backhand, right? And so it would ruin my day. That would happen. I would fall down at 9 o'clock in the morning. I would spill my cereal at 9 o'clock in the morning. I would go back to bed, and that's where I would stay. And I remember the first time that I laughed, and it was like, I'm so fucking tired of crying. And to where I laughed and I heard myself, and it was a sound that I hadn't heard in so long, and I missed it. And I
Hmm.
thought, I have a choice. I might not have put myself on this road that I'm on, but I am driving the car. And so now it's up to me. And I learned to laugh again. And to be able to say that, like, I'm almost getting teary-eyed with it now. Like, I remembered that laugh.
Hmm.
And it, from that day forward, changed things for me.
That makes total sense to me. And to be
Yeah.
clear, I'm not a therapist,
Yeah.
but it makes total sense to me that like, and it's not clear necessarily, which is the chicken and which is the egg. In other
Right.
words, whether you I think partly you laughed because you were ready for whatever reason, and if it
Sure.
wasn't slipping in the kitchen, it would have been something else. But I also think that like as long as you didn't actually hurt yourself, then like slipping and falling with a bowl of fruity pebbles is one of the funniest things you can fall with. Like it's like
Right.
legit. Like I'm picturing like you didn't. It's like they're like goofy polka dots, right? Like it's not like you fell with like nails. Or like shattered an heirloom. It's like fruity pebbles. So like you fall and then you're like, ah, and there's
Yeah.
like, and everyone loves slapstick, and it's when it's harmless, and then there's milk and there's like bouncy fruity balls so I feel like it makes sense to me that like some combination of being ready to
Mm.
laugh and also the incident actually being legitimately pretty good slapstick
Yeah.
kind of came together in that moment. And it doesn't mean, and I think people all go on their own journey to figure this out, so like I'm not the only one who knows this or tells people this, because people get a lot, people do get to that place. Getting to that place where you can laugh doesn't mean that what happened to you was funny.
Exactly.
um it doesn't mean that you're all of a sudden ready to take it less seriously. It means, I think, that it means, I'm not sure. I used to do a lot of work in the area of breakups, basically, and
Mhm.
people would talk about closure, and I would always say, like, I don't know if closure is really the attainable goal, because what does it really mean? Like, you're never really over the thing, and that's okay. It's just like enough time has passed that there might still be like a little piece of whatever it is stuck to your back, but it's not in your way. Like, I don't know, closure. What's closure? But with something like trauma, I think, and again, I'm not a therapist, but when I've spoken to people who are experts in like cognitive therapy, they describe that moment of when you're able to laugh as, and I'm mixing in my words with theirs, but as the moment, or the series of moments, the process, when you're able to kind of, and I'll use my mug as a prop, when you're able, when like it's not this thing that's in you, it's this thing that's, you still have, but you can hold it at a distance. Sorry, it keeps disappearing. You can hold it at a distance and be like, what, this part isn't funny, this part inside, or the part that's still attached to me isn't funny, but this part, the handle, that's funny. Like something about it, or something about, like, I don't know, maybe like your friends said all sorts of stupid shit at the time. Not your friends, not your real friends, but like maybe people said stupid things to you, and now you have enough distance to be like, okay, that part's funny.
Right.
Maybe it's so ridiculous, like it doesn't sting you anymore, so you can laugh with people who've been through what you've been through and be like, okay, how many people had someone say this,
Right.
and so you can find the external parts that are funny. It's not what happened, it's
Right.
how you responded, how people responded, how the world responded, that has the opportunity to be funny. And when you can hold it, or the capacity to be funny, and when you hold it at a distance and can examine it, that shows that, and again, chicken egg, not sure, it's a process, that shows that you're able to get enough, for whatever reason, passage of time, therapy, whatever it is, that you're able to get enough distance from it that you can evaluate and discover and kind of dig into the funny parts and discern them from the parts that will never be funny.
Yeah.
But at least the funny parts are funny, and it gives you some, it reinforces the distance that you have from this terrible thing that happened.
Yeah, I love everything that you just said, especially with the coffee mug, because I think what was happening with me is I was in a place up until that moment. I was in a place where anything and everything that happened, especially bad or hurtful, was a repercussion of the hate crime, of the attempted murder, right? So with me falling down, it was because of the damage, the brain damage that this man chose to give me while trying to take my life away. When sometimes you just trip and fall over shit. And so it allowed me to have this separation of not everything that happens is because of him. And so many things can be true at the same time. Instead of me putting all of my eggs and chicken, right? Instead of putting all of my eggs in one basket, I was able to realize that, yeah, maybe I fell down because of my ailments from what he did to me, but he didn't stick his foot out to trip me, and there's a difference in that. And so that hearing myself laugh was the first time that I thought, you know what? I'm in control now. And that was one of my top healing moments. And what I find so interesting that I would love your thoughts on is when I do a lot of research on, because I love comedy, love stand-up comedy, it takes a brilliant genius to do it, especially when it's done the right way, because I think the best comedians are going to be the ones that can make fun of everybody and make fun of everything, but no one leaves offended, right? We all leave thinking, oh, maybe that's how the gay person does feel. And I didn't know I was making them feel that way, but I learned something while laughing. And then now I'm going to second guess how I maybe say something. I wish I could think of like a certain joke or comedian off the top of my head, but of course on the spot I can't. But I think that when there's these comedians that use their life experiences or something that their trauma and they're able to turn it into something is when we can walk away laughing while learning is huge. And it takes a brilliant kind of person to do it. And that's why I think some comedians make it so well and maybe some don't. What are your thoughts on that?
I think when comics really nail it is when they, and this is true also of like people who do more like comic storytelling, and it's true of good television also, good comic, resonant comic television. And that is, and it's going to sound like a paradox, but when they're able to paint a picture that is so specific that you may find on its surface you cannot relate to it. You live in Tennessee, they're from Alaska. You're gay, they're straight, whatever it is, you
Right.
know. But when they're able to paint such a specific picture, it makes it easier for you to imagine. It takes you there into this world that they're creating, and then it actually, whatever they're talking about, actually becomes more relatable
Yeah.
because you're drawn into the picture that they're painting, and then you realize, oh well, this joke is really about, will I ever be loved, you know, or like these primal fears and experiences that we all have regardless of where we live, what color our skin is, what's our religion, you know. And so that's, I think, I'm not the only person who thinks this, but that's why, you know, if you study comedy, that's why you're going to be told over and over, nope, more specific. And weirdly, again, that's what, the more specific you are about your own self, the more relatable you're going to be to more people, even though
Mhm.
that sounds backwards. Because if you just say like, anyone else have weird parents, you know, you're like, okay, it's a start, but yeah,
Yeah.
you know, aren't weird parents weird? Yeah, but there's nothing to grab onto. But then if they get
Uh,
into some description of like that has nothing to do with what your parents are like,
yeah.
but you're like drawn in because you're like, okay, then you get to the heart of the matter because you're so drawn in that you can, then you relate it to your own story. Even if you don't even have weird parents, it's something else,
Right.
right? It's something about family. It's something about the weird other weird people in your life, whatever it is, you
Yeah.
know. So that's when I think it works, and also that's when comedy about trauma can really work
Yeah.
because once, you know, once a comic has gotten that same kind of distance that you and I have been talking about, where it's not a thing that is inside them, it's a thing that they have, but they can hold at a distance so they can turn it over and consider what's funny.
Yeah.
Um, then, yeah, I mean, they have to make choices about how specific they're going to be with the audience about which elements of whatever trauma they're talking about. And they have to convey to the audience that they're okay, that they, the comic, are okay, and that they have to convey to the audience that it's okay to laugh. Those are very
Right.
important things. But then again, you could, you know, be listening to someone talk in a very thoughtful way about a trauma that you've never had, and they'll find the pieces that are that of it that are the most primal and relatable. And so that's where that kind of content can really resonate also.
Yeah. Now, I am not a comedian. I think I'm funny. I'm one of my biggest fans, but
Good.
that's a whole other episode. But like I remember this one time when I got back into the working world, after my hate crime, and there was this little guy well, I shouldn't say. There was this, he was probably in his 60s or 70s that came up. I say little guy just because he was smaller than me and I'm already a small guy, right? But he at least thought he was 6 foot tall and bulletproof. And he was ready to take me down, for something that I had no control over. And so luckily I'm good at like talking people off the ledge and keeping them cool, calm, and collected. And so he walked away and I looked over at my coworkers and I was like, good Lord, I thought I was about to be a victim of another hate crime. And I thought that was so funny. But then they kind of looked at me like they didn't know if they could laugh or not.
Right.
And I thought me making that joke and laughing would be their permission. But then and that's when I started realizing that people are walking on eggshells around me. And
Hmm.
then I noticed that, like, when you have, like, around holidays, when you have friends and family gatherings with people that maybe you don't see all the time, and all they really saw was my court case being drawn out, through social media, or if they called my mom, whatever I put on social media, whatever was on the news. And so my healing looked different to them. It was on a different timeline than them. And so every time that I saw them, I thought I was doing great. And I was ready to laugh and play and cut up and, and throw each other on the bus and be silly like we always do. And I was doing that. I'd be like, oh, you need a little Botox here or whatever, just whatever is being silly. And they're like, oh, you're right. I probably do. And I'm like, oh. You look younger than you ever have before. Like I'm trying to just joke with you like we always have. But they always felt like they had to still walk on eggshells with me because I was not healing on the timeline that they had been presented via social media, via whatever, and or on their terms. And so we just kept hitting these walls.
I wasn't there. I don't know.
Sure,
But it
sure.
also occurs to me that another take could also be true at the same time is that they were being super careful, that they just didn't know,
100%.
that they just were like, this is not, I do not want to step into this quicksand.
Sure.
And what comics, a comedian has the luxury, which you don't in
Right.
those incidental conversations. A comic, I mean, I've seen comics talk about this stuff who literally say, I'm going to tell you about this terrible thing that happened to me. And they will say, it's okay to laugh. They'll just say
Mhm.
it. And you can also tell when they're like telling jokes as opposed to like reading their diary. You can tell. And so they have time. They have time on stage. And typically what they'll do is like spend a bunch of time building your trust before they get into the tough stuff if they're going to talk about tough stuff. So they'll talk about more goofy stuff before they kind of gently pivot into whatever trauma or whatever, it's not to be trauma, but whatever
Sure.
more difficult topic. And so in real life, you don't you just don't have that opportunity.
Right.
So I can imagine myself just being like, can I laugh? Like if I'm not your
Right.
best, if I'm not like your inner circle, I could imagine myself kind of watching you for cues and then being like, okay, 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 okay. But like,
Right.
but being like,
Yeah.
and just to be as careful as possible.
Oh,
I mean, you have more
100%.
data on this than I do, but
100%.
you
And I
know,
was never offended or mad at
yeah,
these people because obviously they're not out of love and respect, right?
yeah,
But I mean, the point of me wanting to do this surviving ish was to show people that we do give you permission and it's okay to laugh with me. It's one thing to laugh at me. And I'm the kind of person too that if you said something that I wasn't ready for, we're probably, hopefully, going to be in that place where I can say, okay, that might have been taken a little too far. Let's reel it in a
yeah,
little bit, and then we're okay. We'll high five after and we're done. I love comedy. I think comedy and music is two of my top healings. And I love, like, there are certain people that can come out and just give that one opening line that's like WTF and you're in. And so when you were talking about how someone might say something about family, right? I think of Sarah Silverman. And so what I'm going to say here is going to be a Sarah Silverman little quote from her stand up, but we're non-filtered here. As a comedian, I doubt you're offended by much. But like Sarah Silverman walks out on stage and she says, hold on, how did she say it? She said, oh, she said, I was going down on my boyfriend and I realized I'm just like my mother. And I mean that was her opening line. And so people were like, "What?" But it also makes me think of how like I would never think about that and think that I'm just like my mom, but I immediately go into like I know there are things where I'm just like my mom, in
yeah,
my 40s now that 20 years ago I'd have been like, I will never do anything like this, but you're so awful for this. And then now I'm doing it and I'm not even a parent, and so it immediately got me into that. Well, how do I relate to my mom? I don't relate to her this way, but how do I relate to her in other ways? Like, what's next? What is Sarah going to
yep,
say next? And I thought that was just really cool.
yep. I agree. It's not just shocking; it actually draws you in.
Yeah. But it takes a certain kind of person for that to be an opening line. Would you think?
Yeah, because you'd have to, if you were newer, you could do that joke. You just have to work it a lot. And because she walks into a room where everyone knows who she is.
Yeah.
So, she has the leeway to do that. But there was always a first time for that joke, or, I remember her from the 90s, and before she was super famous, and she was always provocative. Like she would always kind of go there, but then really not, at the end of the day, what she was really getting at was not very shocking, but she would, which, and meaning, I don't mean that she tried and failed to be shocking. I just
Sure.
mean that she would find like a shocking way into a perfectly reasonable, resolution that would actually highlight the ridiculousness of whatever it was she was about to say. So, but yeah, it still goes to whether it's because you're well known or whatever, the idea that you have to build trust first,
Yeah.
before you get into, you don't have to, it is recommended that you build trust first before you get into your more challenging material. But
Yeah.
Sarah has
Right.
built the trust.
Okay, so is there a main topic that you came in today wanting to discuss? Was there anything that, because I would love for us to discuss that.
Yeah, I mean, I could go on and on still about all the different ways that all the different intersections of comedy and
Yeah.
things that aren't funny. Whether it could also be about social issues. It can also be about that aren't funny. Ice, not funny, but there are ways to make fun. Obviously, there are ways to make fun of what's going on. And you made me think of it when you were talking about whether your friends might or might not make fun you tease you,
Hmm.
and I think that they and you would always sense the difference between, is this joke making fun of me, or is this joke making fun of the ripples around what happened to me, right?
Hmm.
Is this joke making fun of, and you could do these jokes, like, is this joke making fun of, like, the ridiculous reactions that you still have, like, now I can't even look at a fruity pebble or whatever it is, right?
Right.
Or just weird, and I mean, you can tell these more than other people, but just like, is it that your strong reactions to like really small details that remind you of that trauma, and it could be like, it could be like the color red, like it could be anything, and like,
Yeah.
I can't even eat an apple anymore, like, whatever, that's not funny, but like, but making sort of self-effacing in a powerful way, which sounds like a paradox but isn't. But by the same token, like, your whether it's about an individual or something catastrophic or awful in the world, it's about discerning, am I making fun of the victim or the bad guy? Or am I gently making fun of people who do their best to try to help, but we are imperfect and we don't know how? And an example I would think of is, I was doing stand up during the September 11th era,
Oh,
and
wow.
for
In New
quite a
York?
while, yeah. And so
Wow.
for yeah, and so for quite a while, I don't remember if it was weeks or months, but we it wasn't just like the comedy club shut down, it was like laughter shut down.
Yeah.
Like, it was, I mean, we knew intellectually that someday in 25 years there would one day again be a sitcom or something, but it was like impossible in our bones to imagine.
Yeah.
And I remember the people who kind of got out in front of it were the Onion, and they were the first, like, there was no TV, no one broadcast any comedy on television, like, there was nothing, it was absolute comedy desert, because it wasn't that we didn't think we should, it was that we couldn't. And the Onion comes out swinging after being silent for whatever it was, weeks, months, with this with a special edition and a logo, and I'm going to swear here, but the logo said, "Holy fucking shit, America freaks out." And that was the and that tells you right then, though, that the jokes that they were making and the theme of the comedy that they created was not making fun of the victims. It was not making fun of New York. It was not even like making fun of terrorists, because that's not fun. Like, I mean, yes, you can typically make fun of the bad guys, but they weren't funny yet, because they weren't like bumbling bad guys. They were
Right.
unfortunately very effective bad guys. So like, it wasn't funny. They were like legit scary, and there was nothing funny. But what they managed to do was make fun of the fact that we did not know how to respond, and that we were fumbling in our response. And that made people feel less crazy.
Yeah.
And my favorite headline was, especially people who didn't live in New York City or near the Pentagon, right? Or in Pennsylvania. And so, where the other plane crashed. And so My favorite headline that they had was not knowing what else to do, Indiana woman bakes flag cake, which was so sweet. And it was so like, it totally captured this feeling of like America's been attacked, but life here in Indiana is the same, except it's not. And I'm completely traumatized, but I'm not in New York, so I can't go look at the walls of victims, and I can't. I'm gonna bake a flag cake, you know.
Yeah.
And so it was very gently and lovingly making fun of our stupefaction.
Well, and even when you said that line, because I hadn't read that line, so even when you said it, like I laughed, but I
Yeah,
immediately thought of like how sweet and innocent and pure is that? And so that laughter was almost like not that it was funny, but it was something that it was a reminder that I needed that people like that exist.
and it
You
wasn't
know
making
that
fun of her. Like sometimes the Onion is making fun of.
oh
Sometimes I do think I love the Onion. God bless the Onion.
same
But
same.
sometimes they punch down. Like sometimes they
Uh-huh.
make fun of like Florida man, you know, and he's
Yeah.
just a dum dum, you know. And I get it. It's fine. It's the least of my worries. I'm not. It's fine.
Right.
Um, but in that joke, they're not making fun of the woman.
No, no,
You know?
it's if anything, like I took this almost a sigh of relief of
Yeah.
there are still good people out there,
Yeah.
and so my laughter that came with that was because of just it again, it was just sigh of relief that there's some good out there, and there's a lot of bad, but there's a lot of good.
Yeah.
And sometimes we
Yeah.
forget, and that just reminded me, like I just picture this woman as like thinking like I don't know what to do. I'm gonna bake a cake with a flag and I'm gonna take a piece to all my neighbors.
Yep.
You
And
know,
like
and
it's
that's
like
just
silly.
sweet.
It's sweet. And also but it's also comedy because like
Yeah.
the word flag cake is funny.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's like very well written comedy because it's just those short punchy words are funny. You know, it's not as funny as like not knowing what else to do. Indiana woman holds patriotic potluck. You know, it's like that's not funny, right?
Right.
But flag cake is funny, and then you can picture her
Patriotic
being like,
potluck.
"I did it," you know, like I did it, and I feel better. And you're like, "Yes,
Yeah.
you do."
Yeah.
So I guess I just wanted to make sure we touched on also the power of comedy around certainly around individual trauma,
Yeah.
but then also around talking about, yeah, talking about ICE, talking about detention, talking about things that are absolutely not funny. And there's kind of a and there's sort of a bridge between those two things because there's a lot of there's a lot of comics who talk about sexual assault, and that is obviously very tricky, and they talk about their own sexual assault, but the way they do it, and here's where the bridge is between like individual trauma and topics that aren't funny, is that often what they do is make fun of, like, you know, rape culture. They'll make fun of the idea that like, well, he's captain of the swim team, he couldn't be a rapist, you know, like, well,
Right.
you could be both. And those things that are actually a national problem that affected this one person, but like making fun of the culture that keeps enabling it is 100% fair game. So
Yeah.
that's why when people ask me like, are there any topics that are off limits, I say no. There are jokes that are off limits. If you're making, like, I'm Jewish, I have one cousin who was not murdered in the Holocaust. Do I think Holocaust jokes are off limits? I do not.
Yeah.
It's just, what's the joke? It better be a damn good
Right.
joke, you
Right.
know? And who are you making fun of? What's your point? You know, but
Yeah.
it's not the topics. The topics are fully, whether they're cathartic to those of us who have the generational trauma, that's one thing. Whether the jokes expose to other people who don't have that generational trauma why we do, like that's all really useful, you
Yeah.
know. Those are not easy jokes to write, but the topic's not off limits.
100%. Like I want us to talk about hate crimes. Now, do I want us to like point a finger and laugh at me because of me being a victim of? No. But you know,
It's
like
not
I
funny anyway, like it's just not
right.
where the comedy
Not
is.
funny, but you know, we live in a different kind of America where some people do think things like that are funny, so there's that. But like
But we're not writing jokes for them.
we're not and I'm not going to be a part of those, you know what I mean? And but like I had conversation with people, and one of the things I said that they've kind of laughed about, but then like wasn't sure if they could or not. And again, I wasn't doing it as not a comedian, I'm not doing it as a joke, but you know, I had mentioned about how the guy that broke inside my house and raped me and beat me until he thought he murdered me and turned
Sorry.
himself in for murder, he's a good looking guy. He wouldn't have had to have raped me.
Yeah. You
I
could do some dark stuff there, sure.
Yeah, like I was 3 days into a breakup after, a 2-year relationship. We thought we were going to build a house and get married, and we broke up instead. Next step. And a single dude, it would have been two consensual adults. He would not have had to have raped me. He could have clapped his hands and my legs would have flown right up in the air. That's the truth. But again, he's a military, self-identifying straight man. It wasn't about him being gay or wasn't about attraction. It was about power and and so there's that difference. But people have been like, you kind of laugh when you say that. I'm like, well, this could have went a totally different way. He could
Yeah.
have just said, "Hey, dude, you want to bang?" And I would have said, "Yeah."
But see, again, I mean, that's a dark joke, and I get
Right.
why it's like a little bit like woo, but that joke is about him. It's not about
Exactly.
you, you know?
Exactly.
I've heard straight women tell a similar joke
Yeah.
about their attackers who basically make fun of them, and you're allowed to because that's punching up, right?
Uh,
Um, and make fun of them for being like, you're already good looking. You're the captain of the freaking swim team. The fact that you have to attack women to get your rocks off just makes you a loser, you
right.
know? And
Right.
so like that it's not the joke, but the joke would be about that,
Right. Right. Yeah.
So it's a similar joke, right?
Yeah.
Or it's a similar take. And so, but yeah, it's punching up. It's making fun of that person. It's making fun of the culture that the patriarchy that tells them that they have impunity. It's
Yeah.
all that stuff, but it's in the form of a joke. So people
Yeah.
didn't come to hear a TED talk about rape culture and patriarchy. They
Right.
came to a comedy show. And if you, the comic, are, as we said, giving them permission to laugh, you can go to those dark places and actually shine some light.
Yeah. Like, so you were talking about ice, and there's a lot about ice that isn't funny, but there's some things that we could laugh at. So there's this little video where they put the derpy derp music to, when the ice was in Minneapolis, and it was like ice is attacking ice because like these icemen would
Yeah,
be running and they would slip on ice and fall. Like
yeah,
that's
fair
kind
game.
of
I'm
funny to
sorry,
me. That's funny
fair
to
game.
me.
I don't mean to blame the victim, but that it's just fair game. They put it is all there are some jokes that are better than others, but it's always fair to punch up at power.
Yeah.
Some jokes are good, some jokes are just kind of mean, whatever, but it's always fair game.
Yeah. One of my favorites, and I know that Ellen DeGeneres has been in and out of controversy, but I will say there was a time that Ellen DeGeneres was very powerful in my life, and she had a few stand-up shows, and one of them, she someone had it's been many years since I've seen it and a couple of brain injuries since, so bear with. But someone was asking about, what was it like coming out? And she was like, "Oh, let me do an interpretive dance." And so she's, like at one point, she makes it seem like she's frolicking through, pretty things and this meadow, and then all of a sudden there's dogs barking, chasing her into traffic, and then you hear a car horn, and she's like dodging the car, and then she doesn't know what to do, and the music gets intense, like dun dun dun, dun, and she gets down into like this, position, and then she just stays there for a minute, and then all of a sudden there's this ting music, and she kind of pokes out, and that's
Hmm.
when she's coming out, and then
Yeah.
she stands up and she shakes it off. She shakes it off and she holds her head up high. And I'm getting chills even saying it, but like
Hmm.
I that is the only interpretive dance I've ever really enjoyed, but it told a freaking good story that I was like, I know all of this. I
Yeah.
know what it's like going to church as a gay man and trying to be in the closet because of religion, and the preacher standing up there saying, if you've ever kissed a boy, you have AIDS and you're gonna die. Like I was I was an 80s baby. Like
Yeah.
I've been in religion where they've used those things as a weapon. When my first kiss was a boy in church, and I was told by the church that I will get AIDS and die if I kiss a boy, and I just kissed a boy in the bathroom closet at
My God.
church. And so now I go home thinking that I have AIDS.
Yep.
Like it was used as a weapon. And so the way that people were laughing and crafting and laughing at the same time during that motivational or that interpretive dance kind of thing that
Yes.
she did. And even the reviews of people saying they walked away from it not understanding because they're straight, they haven't had anything like that. And so I guess that leads me to this, like with you teaching and mentoring and being in your career the way that you have, do you find it common that a lot of these comedians have went through some terrible traumas?
Yes, and or but loosely defined, so a range of there's certainly a it's certainly trauma. Not everyone, some people
Sure.
just like jokes, but could be trauma, could be just something crappy, could be also I know a lot of comics who are, whether they're neurodivergent or just something that makes them outside, something that makes them other. Could just be that they're queer, which still is outside the mainstream, so which may or not have even been traumatic for them, like
Sure.
range of experiences. But it's not true that every comedy does not have to be informed by pain necessarily.
Right.
So it's not like, oh, they're all messed up. It's not that. But it does give you what to write about. Especially once you've had some practice and are able to tackle the more challenging topics in a way that is appropriate to the topic, comfortable for the audience, etc. We once did a show for Gold that was all everyone in the show was neurodivergent, and it was so funny because they were so self-effacing about like the what they would call like the weird shit that they do, and it was absolutely hilarious, and it really gave them a place to like not hide it, not have to pass whatever, whether it's a random OCD habit or just the way that they do or don't read faces or whatever it was. It was just so, but it was also really illuminating for those of us, who kind of should take a minute to understand what they're going through every minute, even as, or going through is a strong word maybe, but like what they're negotiating
Sure.
every minute that we don't, while they kind of pass. And it was really illuminating.
Yeah.
So even just things like that, I wouldn't call trauma, but like something you're dealing with. Everyone's got something. And it's just a range, certainly a range. And comedy is really a great way to sort it in your own mind and then also communicate and illuminate it for others.
Well, I think what is so great too, and one thing that we don't do on this platform that I always make clear to people is we never try to compare traumas, right? Like what I
Yeah.
went through is the hardest thing I went through. If
Yeah.
if you're if you had a car accident and broke your thumb, and that is the hardest thing that you've ever went through, we can compare the two. That's not fair. That's not fair to you. It's not fair to me. And so I think that we all have trauma and hardships and things that we've been through. They're different than others, but we can't say what is bigger or greater, right? And that's one thing that I've always appreciated about comedy is we have a lot of comedy places here, that I'll get tickets and go to, and when I walk in there, I know that we're all going to be made fun of, and we're all there for the same goal, and it's to laugh. And when the lights go down, not even when the lights go down, when you walk into that building, you can feel that it doesn't matter what race you are, what sexual orientation you are, what gender you are, or sex you identify. Nothing matters. We're all there to have a cocktail, maybe some greasy bar food, and a
Oh,
fucking laugh. And so then, okay, so as we're starting to bring this closer to an end, do you have a segment in your teaching courses um where you talk about and guide people on hecklers? Like I've seen so many things go viral here lately on social media with
some
hecklers, and some
people,
people know
yeah.
how to handle them very well.
Yeah, we teach a workshop on crowd work where that comes up a little bit. I think that you think it, not you, but one thinks it happens more than it does because you often see like moments on social.
Right.
It's not that it doesn't happen, but most of the times if it does, you don't see it on social because 99% of the time, the audience is on your side, not the heckler.
Yeah.
And so the audience also doesn't really care if you make the heckler into something hilarious. The audience doesn't want you to like change the show for one dipshit, right? So typically it's like if someone's heckling, you're like, oh, got the talking stick or whatever, just something,
Yeah.
and then they stop or the people around them are like, Bruce, wow, shut up. So it's something that you get used to because it happens every now and then, but it's not like a whole thing you need a class on because once you're
Gotcha.
comfortable enough on stage, you can figure out, how to move past it. And like if they get really bad, like again, it won't be on you to save the day. It'll
Yeah.
because the crowd will not be on your
They're
side
gonna do it, but
unless
yeah.
you're mean. The thing to never do is to be mean to a heckler because they'll turn on you, right? But
Mm.
comics know that. So it's a little bit of a, it's always an interesting question, but it's a little bit of a red herring because, yeah, if they're really bad, someone from the club is going to come and bring them out. Like, and if they're not, then you can usually pretty much go and they'll
Yeah.
be quiet.
You're right though, because even though I've been to hundreds of comedy shows and I've never seen a heckler in real life.
Yeah, it's
I
not.
see it on social media, and of course, the ones they put on social media is because there's some kind of like funny behind it, right? I guess I haven't thought about that, which I guess that also shows how like those things work, right? Like because I think that I see it on social media means it happens to every comedian, every show. Whenever I go to the next show, it's going to happen. You had mentioned crowd work. And there are some comedians that I'd rather see their crowd work than their actual skit performance. So what and you all do have a class on that, right?
Yeah, we offer a workshop every now and
A
then on
workshop.
on
Okay.
crowd work and yeah, and what it takes, what it means, when to do. It's really about when to do it, why to do it, where to do it, like when to bother, when to not. Some comics are great at it and they make it their whole act.
Mm,
Some comics, it's just not their jam. But there's also a middle ground where it's nice to sort of spend a few minutes at the beginning if you have time, being like, so where are people from? And I
mm.
think the key thing is to just be discerning about when to bother, unless it's your thing, and then also to never try to be funny, just because it's never a bad idea to just get to know the audience a little bit if you have the
Yeah.
time. And they're not necessarily going to expect you, oh, so what do you do? I'm a lawyer joke. Like
Right.
they're not going to, if you just say, like, oh, what kind of law? Like, then you're just having a conversation. And if you don't have a joke, or if there's no obvious joke, then you can say, like, nice to meet you. And then you move on to the next person or move on with your set. But then you might remember that there's a lawyer right there. So if something comes up later and all you do is go, you understand, then the
Right.
audience thinks that's hilarious.
Hilarious. You're right. Like
So,
when you bring those little things back in, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
right.
Like
But it's not
we
even like a fully formed joke. It's just that you
no.
remembered who you talked to. And
Uh-huh.
so it can be useful in those ways. That's like the level of crowd work I used to do. I never did a whole big thing with it, but I would remember
And
who was
sometimes
where.
it's just the side eye, right? Like if you're talking to a person over here and they mention like, oh, I'm going through a divorce and child custody and all this, but you just got done talking to a lawyer and you look over at the lawyer and you're like, you give that, yeah, like that's
Yeah.
hilarious to me.
You two should talk. I mean, it's just that, just,
Or hey, I
yeah.
know a good lawyer, like that
Exactly.
shit's hilarious.
Exactly. So it's not about like being hilarious. It's or like finding the funniest, most elaborate joke. It's just about
Yeah.
listening and remembering it's a conversation, and it's probably not that different from from a joke you'd make at a dinner party,
Yeah.
where you'd be like, "Oh, you should talk to that guy," or whatever it is,
Yeah.
So
There was one time I was a part of a crowd work that was I took it as the highest compliment. And people thought it was funny because it kept coming back. But like he was talking about how the comedian was talking about how like he's a new father, how he's exhausted, bags under his eyes, all this stuff. And then he was like, are there any new parents or whatever? And so he was going through the crowd and he was like, oh, you've got kids. And he went on and then he came across me and I was the one in the front row and he was like, man, he said, you look so damn good. I don't know if you ever even babysat a kid. And
yeah,
I had just gotten Botox. And so like I was like, Thank you. And then, and so like later on, throughout a different conversation, it came up, something came up again about, looking young and youthful. And he looked back at me and he was like, and so it
Yeah.
was fun. And then like when we went to the bar after the show, like people kept coming up to me and they're like, I wish I looked as good as you. Like you probably never seen a baby, and they were buying me drinks. So I'll take it. I wasn't even part of
Ah,
the show, but I'll let you buy me drinks.
it's just it's like community building for 1 hour.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
I love that. So, okay, I'm going through your email here because I want to make sure that we discuss everything. I love these conversations. I want you to know how much laughter has helped me heal and that I don't want to ever say I don't know that I've ever been suicidal. I don't know that my life has ever gotten to that point. I can't say that it wouldn't have, but luckily it didn't. But I've heard so many stories. I've even had people write me and say, David, sometimes I listen to your episode and you're talking, when you go into full detail of what happened to you. And there are times that you laugh and I don't get that. I don't know how to do that. And that you do it and that helps give me permission to do it. And that is just so powerful. It takes me back, to what I've already said before, but I truly remember, and I wish I had my kitchen on camera because I truly heard my laughter for the first time in a long time. And I was like, holy fuck, I miss that. And that was also the one in very few times I've been able to point something out about me that I didn't know how much I loved and missed and was determined to get it back. And so there I just want to give out a thank you to people with doing what you're doing and being a part of what you do because the people that I follow, are those comedians, the ones that I know that we're gonna laugh at me. No, we're gonna laugh with me.
Yeah.
And we might find something about me that, we joke about, but we're gonna laugh together and then we're moving on to the next person because there's something about all of us, whether it's community, whether it's individual, that we can laugh. And laughter to me is celebration, as long as we're laughing with. And so I really appreciate you and what you're doing and the comedians that I know and follow that I will probably never even have the honor to even see or talk to. But it has been one of the most healing places in my life through what is my big trauma. And so thank you so much for that.
I am so glad to hear it. I'm glad you've reached this part of your journey and that
Yeah.
comedy and laughter has helped. Yeah.
So now I'm wondering if I should challenge myself and take some of your work courses or workshops and see if I could become a comedian. Because I'm the era of my life where I want to challenge myself.
I encourage everyone. I really do. And you don't have to, be a certain kind of person. You don't have to be less shy. Not you, but one doesn't
The
have to be like
general,
less
yeah.
shy or more loud or more confident. It's just your comedy comes from you. And sometimes you just turn up the volume a little bit on who you already are.
Yeah.
And yeah, I tell everyone to give it a try because you never know. We have people who give it a try and actually go into stand up. And we
Yeah.
also offer sketch and production and late night writing. And there's all different, you don't have to be a performer. You might just be like, I want to do lights and sound for digital sketches. You don't even have to. I just want to be near comedy. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't see myself on stage. Like that's a thing too. So
Yeah.
the door's open.
I love that. Like, no, and seriously, I want to check it out because one of the I hate resolutions because like my New Year's resolution is to not have a New Year's resolution because I want to break it. I'm gonna fail. But I want to be in an era of trying things that are outside of my comfort zone. And I've gotten used to being behind the camera, but like if you go back to 4 years ago when I first started doing podcasting, I was not on YouTube. I would do Zoom face to face, but it was only audio. I didn't want the public to see my face. I joined TikTok like a year ago. I didn't want my face to be seen. I hated my voice, but I hated my face more. And so to accomplish those things have been big milestones for me. And I'm like, my story was meant to be, even the night of my hate crime, it was meant to be funny. I went to a karaoke bar. The last song I sang, and it's on surveillance, was Shania Twain, Man, I Felt Like a Woman. Like, I just, there are things to laugh at. There's funny parts of that story. Like I was on karaoke at a straight bar, which is where he saw me and ended up
Mhm.
following me home. But there are parts of that story that could be funny while also telling my story to get the real message out there, of we don't rape people. We, if you don't like me because I'm gay, fine. Don't marry me. Don't have sex with me. Don't break inside my house and pull my pants down. Don't do that.
No,
It should be that simple.
that simple.
It should
It should be
be.
that simple. Yeah,
Come on.
yeah. It should be that simple.
If you don't
You're
believe
right.
in gay marriage, then don't marry me. And if I ask you, tell me no.
Yeah,
Like, it's okay. You can reject me
yeah.
without your fist.
With that, yep, you've got the start of a whole bit there.
You
I'll be
know?
happy to provide information for you and
Yes.
for your listeners. I'll send along some stuff that you can put in the show notes and invite anyone listening to kind of find a safe way to explore some of this stuff or
I would love
because
that.
yeah, you really can. Yeah,
I would love that. Lynn
sure.
Harris, thank you so much. This is
Welcome.
exactly what this show is supposed to be about. And thank you for having this hour with me. But I want to take one of your workshops. I want to check in on this. I think it could be fun. I want to do it.
I will send you the info. We will welcome you.
Yes, absolutely.
And
Well, I
you're
hope to have
welcome
you
to share it
back.
with your listeners.
Yes, thank you so much. And I will share all the links to your books and everything. Your email, I think, has some great links in it. If I need anything, I'll let you
Yeah.
know. And
And I'll send you a discount code for you and your listeners. How about that?
oh, I love that. Thank you so so
Yeah,
much.
sure.
Well, thank you so much. And I can't wait to have you back. Maybe you'll come back after I do some workshops and I
Hmm.
will share some jokes with you and see how they land.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Cool.
Thank you
Cool.
so much, Lynn.
Thank you.
Is there any place that you want to let our listeners know to find you that I can share the links to as well?
Yeah, sure. It'll be in the show notes, but if you can't wait to read the show notes, you can go right to goldcomedy.com or Instagram Gold Comedy.
Perfect. And like I said, I'll share the notes. Thank you so so much, and we'll talk very soon, okay?